Picture this, a smoky Vegas lounge in the 60s. Frank Sinatra steps on stage, his voice slicing through the air. All blue eyes, the embodiment of cool. But behind that microphone, silence, calculated, deadly. Frank Sinatra was a megastar, powerful, magnetic, beloved. But cross him, and you might disappear from his world forever, silently erased, never mentioned again. This is no gossip. This is a vault of grudges held close, wounds kept private. 6 names tested him. Each one briefly stepped into his world and cost him respect, power, or friendship. From Broadway's method darling to a tempestuous co-star to a friend with a deadly wrong move. His method was often quiet, but the message unmistakable. Ready for the first name? The method actor who stole his Broadway dream and turned Sinatra cold as steel on set. On the set of Guys and Dolls in 1955, Sinatra, Hollywood's top crooner, expected to reprise the suave Sky Masterson on screen. But fate and Brando had other plans. Marlon Brando, fresh from an Oscar win and crowned the face of method realism, locked into the role. Sinatra hated it. Why? Because Brando's slow burn method clashed with Frank's perfectionist instincts. Brando insisted on multiple takes, forcing Sinatra to eat cheesecake repeatedly. Frustration building, Frank snapped, "Don't give me that actor's studio, sir, at." Brando retaliated in kind, messing with cameras, delaying setups, and reportedly bringing Ava Gardner into Sinatra's trailer just to provoke him. Axe grinders say Sinatra arranged a mob-style prank on Brando, a staged abduction intended as a message. Brando later claimed he just vanished from the set one night. They never spoke again. Sinatra called him Mumbles. Brando rolled his eyes at Sinatra's glossy persona. The project moved on, the tension lingered, and 2 legends parted ways forever. Frank's method wasn't yelling, it was freezing. One icy distance that said, "You're erased." But that was just the beginning. Next up, Shelley Winters, the co-star he publicly insulted, privately never forgot. Frank Sinatra wasn't just known for his voice, he had a mouth too. And when it came to Shelley Winters, it was locked and loaded. They co-starred in Meet Danny Wilson in 1952. From day one, tension simmered. Winters, a proud method actress with strong opinions, didn't back down from anyone, least of all Sinatra. She called him moody, arrogant, and emotionally unavailable. He called her a bow-legged Brooklyn bee, on set in front of crew members. The insult wasn't just cruel, it was public. According to Winters herself, in her memoir, Shelley, also known as Shirley, she finally snapped and slapped Sinatra across the face in front of the camera crew. No warning, just 5 fingers and fury. Sinatra didn't strike back, but he didn't forgive either. From that day on, he refused to look at her directly during filming. They communicated through third parties. Entire scenes were shot with doubles just to keep them from sharing a frame. When the film wrapped, Sinatra reportedly told the studio he'd never work with her again. And he never did. Years later, Winters joked that Frank taught me what ego looks like in a suit. Frank? He never mentioned her name again publicly. Because in Sinatra's world, public disrespect was private death. He didn't need to end your career. He'd just pretend you didn't exist. But if Shelley thought she had diva energy, she had nothing on the Italian screen legend who learned what happens when you make Sinatra wait. Frank Sinatra wasn't just a performer, he was a schedule, a ticking clock in cufflinks. Everything ran by his rhythm, so when Gina Lollobrigida, international sex symbol and diva supreme, waltzed onto set hours late for their film Never So Few, 1959, Frank didn't see glamour, he saw disrespect. She was known for her presence, but on this film, that presence regularly showed up 2 to 3 hours behind call time. Frank was furious, not because of ego, but because lateness was, to him, the ultimate insult. Sinatra was notorious for his promptness. He once fired a band member for being 90 seconds late. So imagine his mood when Gina breezed into makeup while the crew had been waiting since sunrise. Sources on set claimed Frank confronted her off-camera. She reportedly laughed and said, "Darling, you wait for beauty." Frank didn't laugh. He went to the studio and had her role reduced. He later asked the director to replace her entirely. When they refused, he cut shooting days and arranged the schedule to minimize their time together. After filming wrapped, they never spoke again. When asked later in interviews about the experience, Gina called Frank uptight. Frank never uttered her name again. She thought she was being fabulous. He thought she was being unprofessional. And in Frank's world, there was no worse offense. But if you thought clashing with a co-star was bad, wait until you hear what happened when a member of the Rat Pack tried to out-negotiate Frank Sinatra. Joey Bishop was the Rat Pack's quiet ace. Funny, sharp, dependable. He wasn't the singer or the heartthrob or the drunk poet. He was the closer, the comic, the clean-up hitter, and he was loyal until he wasn't. Frank loved Joey like a brother, gave him stage time, TV deals, opened Vegas doors for him. But power changes people. In 1963, Frank needed a last-minute fill-in at Cal Neva Lodge, his beloved Lake Tahoe resort. Joey was the obvious choice, but instead of saying yes, Joey gave Frank a number, $50,000, private jet, control over the show, all for one weekend. Frank was stunned. Joey wasn't negotiating, he was leveraging their friendship for profit. Sinatra said nothing, paid someone else, and quietly iced Joey out. From that moment on, Joey's seat in the pack began to disappear. He stopped being invited to shows. His name vanished from posters. He hosted the Joey Bishop Show, but without the Rat Pack behind him, it never reached the heights it could have. Years later, Bishop told friends, "I made a business decision. He made a personal one." Exactly, because in Sinatra's world, loyalty was currency, and betrayal, however subtle, was bankruptcy. He didn't yell, he didn't argue, he just crossed your name off the list, and the spotlight followed him out the door. But if you thought losing a seat at the Rat Pack table was the deepest cut, wait until you hear about the man Frank trusted with everything, and the silence that followed his betrayal. Before Vegas, before the Rat Pack, before the world called him chairman of the board, Frank Sinatra had Hank Sanacola. Hank was more than a manager. He was Frank's best friend, his shadow, his muscle, his cleaner. From the earliest days in Hoboken to the smoky rooms of New York nightclubs, Sanacola fought for Sinatra's success, negotiated record deals, handled bad press, and when things got ugly, handled that too. They made a pact, 50-50 on all profits. No lawyers, just loyalty. But as Sinatra's fame exploded, so did the stakes. By the late 1950s, Frank's power was absolute, and Hank's cut, still 50%. Whispers grew. Some said Hank was investing Frank's money without permission. Others said Sinatra wanted a clean break, without the mess. Then came 1963. Amid pressure over alleged mob connections tied to Cal Neva Lodge and political scrutiny, Sinatra dropped Sanacola cold. No press release, no thank you, just silence. Sanacola was devastated. He later told a reporter, "I didn't just lose a job, I lost a brother." But Sinatra never explained, never addressed it, never called. He cut Hank out of his life like a ghost. Some said he did it to protect them both. Some said it was power. But either way, Sanacola learned what all the others had. Cross Sinatra, even in silence, and he disappears you. And if you think that friendship ended cold, wait until you see what happened when Sinatra took on one of the most powerful men in America. And didn't blink. Howard Hughes was the ghost king of Las Vegas, billionaire, aviator, movie mogul, paranoid recluse. And in the 1960s, he quietly bought up half the Strip. Frank Sinatra was Vegas royalty. He brought the crowds, the glamour, the Rat Pack. So when Hughes acquired the Sands Hotel, Sinatra's home turf, tension was inevitable. At first, Sinatra welcomed the change, but then came the restrictions, credit limits, gambling caps, tightened liquor accounts. Frank wasn't just irritated, he was insulted. He'd helped build Vegas into a spectacle. Now Hughes was clipping his wings. It came to a head in 1967. When Sinatra's casino credit was cut off mid-game, he exploded. He stormed into the hotel lobby, smashed glass, flipped furniture, and allegedly swung at a Sands executive with a golf club. One story claims he even took a sledgehammer to the helipad Hughes had built for his personal arrival. Hughes had security escort Sinatra off the property. Sinatra never returned. He moved his act to Caesar's Palace. And with him, the Rat Pack, the glamour, the crowds. Hughes had money, but Sinatra had the audience, and Vegas followed the music. It wasn't just a grudge, it was a message. You can buy the casino, but you can't buy the king. And now, after all the betrayals, fallouts, and silences, one final curtain falls. Frank Sinatra never needed to throw punches. He didn't scream. He didn't tweet. He didn't go on talk shows and spill tea. He just vanished you. You could be a co-star, a comedian, a casino tycoon, or his best friend from Hoboken. The moment you crossed the line, Sinatra crossed you out. No warnings, no explanations, just silence that echoed louder than a stage mic. He built his world on loyalty, precision, and timing. And once your rhythm was off, you were gone. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with a coldness only legends can master. He didn't end careers, he closed chapters. And in the end, his biggest weapon wasn't his voice, it was his absence. Thanks for watching Legends Unfiltered, where icons don't always fight back. They just walk away and take the spotlight with them. Drop a comment if you think someone else deserved to be on Sinatra's silent blacklist. Smash that like if this story surprised you. And make sure to subscribe, because the next legend we unmask might just be the one you thought could never hold a grudge.